What if everything you were taught about success is a lie? What if the late nights, the endless grind, the degrees, the perfect resume, all of it was never about you becoming successful, but about you becoming useful to someone else? Imagine waking up one day and realizing that the ladder you've been climbing was leaning against the wrong wall all along, that your achievements were just a clever illusion, shiny enough to keep you chasing, but hollow enough to keep you empty. Scary, right? Well, that fear you feel right now, that's the first real clue you're onto something true. Because the lie isn't just about what success is, it's about what it costs. And chances are, you're already paying. Part 1. Success as a product you were sold. Let's get one thing straight. Success, the way you've been taught to see it, is not a natural idea. It's not universal. It's not common sense. It's a product. A well-marketed, highly polished, psychologically engineered product. Just like soda. Just like cigarettes once were. And like all great products, it was sold to you young, packaged with promises, and repeated until it became truth. From your very first school year, you were introduced to the basic formula: good behavior equals gold stars. High marks equal praise. Obedience equals approval. You were rewarded for sitting still, following instructions, memorizing facts, not for asking meaningful questions or thinking differently. In fact, those who deviated, the so-called disruptive kids, were labeled problematic, not visionary. The story went like this: work hard, stay in line, pass your tests, go to college, get a job, move up the ladder, and voila, success. And success, of course, would bring happiness, fulfillment, meaning. Everything your little human heart could ever want, right? Except, somewhere along the way, you started to notice cracks in that story. Maybe it was when your straight-A friend had a breakdown in college, or when your coworker with the perfect LinkedIn profile confessed he hated his life, or when you hit a milestone you were supposed to celebrate, promotion, house, fancy title, and felt nothing. Worse than nothing, emptiness. Why? Because what they sold you was a version of success that has nothing to do with you. It was never about you becoming your truest, fullest self. It was about you becoming useful, predictable, legible to the machine. Let me explain. The modern idea of success is rooted in industrial values: efficiency, production, order. You weren't taught to grow, you were trained to fit. Fit a system, a job title, a demographic. Your dreams had to be scalable, your passions had to be monetizable, your energy had to serve something bigger, usually a company's bottom line. And so, success became synonymous with survival. You weren't aiming for happiness, you were trying not to fall behind. You weren't curious, you were strategic. You didn't ask, who am I? You asked, what's in demand? Think about how we talk about people. She's very successful. What does that mean? That she's kind? That she's wise? That she sleeps well and wakes up joyful? Probably not. It usually means she earns a lot, owns a lot, impresses a lot of people on social media, has a calendar so full she barely breathes. But here's the disturbing part. This model of success doesn't even require you to be well. In fact, it often works better if you're not. If you're anxious, you'll work harder. If you're insecure, you'll buy more. If you're sleep deprived, you won't question much. The system doesn't reward your wholeness, it rewards your compliance. And so we perform. We perform intelligence, ambition, likability, professionalism. We put on the mask every morning. We chase the next thing and the next thing and the next, because stopping feels like death. Not just economic death, but ego death. Who are you if you're not achieving something right now? This is not success. This is addiction, a culturally approved, well-compensated form of addiction. And like all addictions, it promises to fill a void while secretly making the void bigger. But wait, it gets trickier. You're not just chasing external success, you're also curating the appearance of success. On Instagram, on LinkedIn, even in casual conversations. You've become your own publicist, and this endless self-marketing turns your entire life into a brand campaign. Look at me, I'm making it. And deep down, a tiny voice whispers, but why does it still feel so empty? Because you were sold the image of success, not the substance. The trophy, not the game. The applause, not the music. Real success isn't loud. It doesn't need validation. It doesn't depend on metrics or markets. It's quiet, gentle, personal. It feels like waking up without anxiety, like being proud of how you treat people, like saying no to things that drain your soul, even if they look impressive on paper. But no one makes money off that kind of success. It can't be marketed, it doesn't sell courses, so it's hidden. Buried under ads, algorithms, and influencers preaching hustle while secretly burning out. Look, if the idea of success you've been chasing hasn't brought you peace, maybe it was never your idea to begin with. Maybe it was implanted, manufactured, a clever way to turn your time, your energy, and your soul into someone else's profit margin. This isn't a call to quit your job or move to the woods. It's a call to wake up, to remember that you get to define what success means. You, not your school, not your parents, not your boss, not some TED Talk. You. And maybe, just maybe, it looks nothing like what you were told. Part 2, The Invisible Cage, Success and Control. You know what's worse than being trapped? Not realizing you're trapped. That's what makes the modern version of success so dangerous. It's not forced, it's seductive. It doesn't imprison you with walls. It gives you a shiny glass office with a view. A promotion, a raise, a business card with your name spelled correctly. And then it whispers, "You made it." You smile, nod, and ignore the part of you that quietly dies inside. Let's be clear, success today is marketed as freedom, the ability to do what you want, when you want, how you want. But for most people chasing it, the reality is the opposite. It's control disguised as choice. It's slavery wrapped in perks. You don't work a 9 to 5 anymore. You work whenever, which often means always. You're not managed by a boss. You're managed by your own guilt, your own ambition, your own to-do list that never stops growing. You're not in chains, you're in meetings. You're not being screamed at, you're being motivated. See? Polite prison. Success has become a lifestyle, not a destination. And that lifestyle is a relentless loop. Prove your worth, perform your competence, pretend you're fine. Every single day. Even your rest has to be productive now. Your weekends should include networking, your vacations should include content, and your sleep should be biohacked. God forbid you just breathe. It's funny, isn't it? The more we achieve, the more we feel behind. The more freedom we have, the more trapped we feel. This isn't accidental. This is design. Let's talk about control. Control in the modern world isn't exercised through brute force. It's exercised through self-discipline, through internalized pressure, through your own thoughts policing themselves. You don't need a dictator when you have a calendar. You don't need a supervisor when you've internalized the voice that says, do more, be better, or else. We've been conditioned to see rest as laziness, stillness as failure, slowness as weakness. So we hustle, not because we're greedy, but because we're scared. Scared of what happens if we stop. Scared of being irrelevant. Scared of being left behind in a race we never even chose to run. And the most tragic part? Many of us are so deep in the system, we defend the very thing that drains us. Hard work builds character, we say. No pain, no gain. As if suffering is a badge of honor instead of a red flag. As if burnout is proof of commitment instead of proof of disconnection. The system doesn't want you to feel whole. It wants you to feel hungry. Because hungry people buy things. Hungry people work longer. Hungry people don't rebel. And success, the way it's currently sold, is a perfect tool to keep you hungry forever. There's always a next level, a bigger house, a newer phone, a more impressive role, a shinier identity to wear. Even the people who make it often say, I don't feel like I've arrived. Because you don't. You never do. The goalposts move faster than you can chase them. The rewards get bigger, but so do the expectations. You build a bigger life only to become smaller inside of it. What we call ambition is often just fear in a tuxedo. Fear of not being enough. Fear of being forgotten. Fear of being seen as ordinary. But you are not ordinary. You are human. And humans are not machines. We are not meant to run 24/7 on caffeine and anxiety. We are not meant to turn every passion into a side hustle. We are not meant to optimize every hour for maximum yield. The invisible cage is built from good intentions. That's what makes it so sneaky. You were told to work hard, to be proud of your progress. And that's fine, until working hard becomes never stopping. Until progress becomes obsession. Until life becomes a checklist of goals achieved, but never lived. You might be thinking, but I chose this, maybe. Or maybe the choices were made for you a long time ago. In classrooms, boardrooms, dinner tables. In a culture that equates busyness with virtue, that applauds exhaustion, that turns your worth into a performance review. Here's a radical idea. You don't owe the world your constant improvement. You don't have to be the best version of yourself every minute of every day. You don't have to earn your right to rest, to breathe, to exist. You can slow down. You can stop climbing ladders that lead nowhere. You can choose a different definition of success, one that doesn't look good on a resume but feels good in your soul. Real freedom doesn't look like unlimited vacation. It looks like not needing an excuse to rest. It doesn't look like remote work. It looks like having enough time to think your own thoughts, feel your own feelings, live your own life. The invisible cage is real, but the key is in your hands. The question is, do you want to use it? Part 3. Why we keep chasing what hurts us. It's strange, isn't it? We know we're tired. We know we're anxious, overworked, and burned out. We know that the success we're chasing isn't making us feel alive. And yet, we keep going. Keep pushing. Keep sacrificing time, sleep, health, our very sanity for something that never seems to love us back. Why? Because deep down, we've been programmed to believe that pain equals progress. That suffering is a sign we're on the right path. If it's easy, it's suspicious. If it's hard, it must be valuable. We've romanticized the grind, glorified the hustle, worshipped the struggle. It's not just cultural, it's personal. We've attached our identity to achievement, the degree, the job, the title, the recognition. These things don't just live on paper, they live in our self-worth. Without them, who are we? So we keep chasing, even when it hurts. Even when it hollowed us out years ago. Because if we stop chasing, what are we left with? Silence, stillness, ourselves. And for many people, that's terrifying. Because when you're quiet long enough, you might hear the truth, that you're not okay, that you don't know what you really want, that the life you've built doesn't fit the person you've become. But rather than sit with that discomfort, we do what we've been taught to do. We distract ourselves with more goals, more action, more striving. We treat our emotional pain like a performance problem. We double down. It's not just internal. Society rewards this cycle. People admire the go-getter, the overachiever, the one who sacrifices for their goals. No one throws a parade for the person who says, actually, I'm done chasing, I want peace. Peace doesn't get a corner office. Peace doesn't trend. Even worse, we internalize shame when we slow down. We feel guilty for resting, lazy for saying no, behind for choosing a quieter life, as if choosing sanity over stress is some kind of betrayal. Let's call this what it really is: psychological conditioning. You've been conditioned to believe that value equals output, that rest must be earned, that worth must be proved. And so every moment becomes a transaction, every hour a negotiation. If I do this, then I'll deserve to rest. If I succeed, then I'll finally feel good enough. But the relief never comes, does it? Because the terms keep changing. The more you do, the more you're expected to do. The reward gets smaller. The pressure gets bigger. You're not chasing success, you're chasing approval, validation, permission to feel okay. And the lie is so deep that even your dreams are infected. You think about what's marketable, what's practical, what's in demand. You rarely ask, what actually lights me up? Because that question feels risky. What if the answer doesn't make money? What if it's not impressive? But here's the real tragedy. When we chase what hurts us, we lose the ability to recognize what heals us. We stop trusting joy. We see it as a distraction. We view happiness with suspicion. This can't be right. It's too easy. So we return to the familiar pain, the grind, the striving, the endless ladder. It's the same logic that keeps people in toxic relationships. I've already invested so much. If I leave now, it'll all be wasted. That's how the system traps you, by making you afraid of starting over, by making you feel like failure is worse than misery. But what if the true failure is staying in something that kills your spirit? What if walking away is actually the most courageous thing you can do? What if the real measure of success isn't what you earn, but what you can live without? This is not an easy shift. It's terrifying, in fact, because it forces you to admit that much of your pain wasn't just accidental. It was chosen. Not consciously, but chosen nonetheless. And if you chose it, you can unchoose it. But here's the catch. Letting go of the chase means confronting who you are without it. Not the resume version, the real you. The unpolished, uncertain, emotional, dreaming, doubting, beautifully raw you. And maybe that's what we're really scared of. Not failure, but authenticity. Because if you stop chasing and you still feel empty, then you can't blame the system anymore. You have to face the mirror. You have to get honest about your values, your wounds, your fears, your desires. It's not easy, but it's the beginning of something real. The truth is, you will keep chasing what hurts you until the pain of pretending becomes greater than the fear of being yourself. That moment will come. For some, it comes with burnout. For others, with illness or heartbreak, or just a quiet night alone where the silence becomes deafening. Whatever it is, let it wake you up. Let it break the cycle. You don't have to hustle for your worth. You don't have to prove your value to be lovable. You don't have to be productive to be at peace. You can stop. Right now, just stop. Breathe. Feel what's left when the noise fades. That feeling right there, that's not failure. That's freedom. Part 4. The trauma of making it. Here's something no one tells you about success. It can be traumatic. Not metaphorically, not dramatically, but actually clinically, emotionally traumatic. The kind of trauma that's polished enough to wear a suit and smile for photos, but deep enough to make you feel like a stranger in your own life. And ironically, the more you achieve, the more invisible that trauma becomes. Because how can something that looks so right feel so wrong? You see, society loves a winner, but it rarely asks what the win cost. It praises the climb, but ignores the bruises. It admires the glow up, but never questions what was lost in the process. You finally make it, and somehow you feel more anxious, more hollow, more disconnected than ever. And worse, you're not allowed to talk about it. You're successful now. You're supposed to be grateful. You're not allowed to feel like you're falling apart when the world thinks you've got it all together. Let's be honest. Success, as it's sold to us, requires a trade. And more often than not, that trade is your soul. You give up time. You give up relationships. You give up curiosity, joy, and softness. You trade it all for performance, for a title, for applause. And when you get there, when you reach the summit, you find yourself looking around and realizing you're alone, not just physically, existentially. You've built a life that looks perfect from the outside, but feels empty on the inside. This is the trauma of making it. Because real trauma isn't always a violent event. Sometimes it's slow, it's subtle, it's waking up every day in a life that doesn't fit, but pretending it does because you worked so hard to build it. It's success that feels like suffocation. It's the kind of pain you can't admit without sounding ungrateful. You tell yourself it's just stress, that it'll get better once you reach the next level. But that's the lie. There is no next level that fixes what success broke. Because what broke wasn't your schedule, it was your selfhood. You spent so long becoming who you needed to be in order to succeed that you lost track of who you actually are. Your identity was outsourced to achievement. You stopped asking, "Do I want this?" and started asking, "Will this look good?" And slowly, the gap between your image and your essence widened. That gap is where trauma lives. And let's not forget, the system doesn't just push you to succeed, it punishes you if you stop. Take a break, you're lazy. Change careers, you're unstable. Prioritize your health over your hustle, you're not serious. The rules are rigid. Keep going, no matter how much it hurts. Keep performing, even if you're falling apart inside. You've made it, remember? You're not allowed to feel lost. And yet, you do. You feel numb. You feel like you're playing a role in a play you didn't write. You smile at parties, but feel like you're watching yourself from outside your body. You collect more trophies, but they don't mean anything. Not really. Because deep down, your success has become a costume, a mask, a carefully curated narrative that hides the fact that somewhere along the way, you stopped living and started surviving. And here's the worst part. No one knows. No one can see it, because your suffering is invisible. It's hidden behind a well-lit Zoom background and a list of achievements. It's masked by your ability to keep functioning. You show up, you deliver, you perform. But every night, when the world goes quiet, a part of you whispers, "Is this it? Is this what I worked so hard for?" That question is your soul begging for honesty, for realignment. It's the voice you silenced for years while chasing someone else's idea of a good life. But now that you've arrived, the silence is louder than ever. And if you're really honest, you might realize something terrifying. You're afraid of stopping not because you'll fail, but because you'll feel. You'll feel the grief of missed moments, the anger at the system that used you, the sorrow of a self-abandoned, and that emotional backlog is too overwhelming to face. So you keep moving, keep achieving, keep numbing. But trauma doesn't disappear just because you're successful. It waits, it festers. It shows up in panic attacks, burnout, chronic fatigue, and that vague emptiness that no amount of money or praise can fill. It's your body keeping score, your mind asking for help in the only language it knows, exhaustion. And yet, the world will still tell you, you made it. And you'll smile, because correcting them would take too much energy. Besides, who would believe you? Who would believe that the golden child feels like a ghost? But here's the truth. You are not broken. You are not ungrateful. You are not weak. You are human. And what you're feeling is not failure, it's feedback. Feedback that you've outgrown the version of success you were sold. That you're ready for something deeper, something real. Because real success isn't about escaping yourself, it's about returning to yourself. It's not about being impressive, it's about being whole. And wholeness doesn't come from grinding harder, it comes from listening, from slowing down, from being willing to say, this life I built, it's beautiful, but it's not mine anymore. That moment, when you finally admit it, is terrifying, but it's also the beginning of healing. Because healing doesn't start when you achieve more. It starts when you let go of what was never yours to begin with. And maybe that's the real measure of success. Not how high you climb, but how courageously you're willing to come back down. Part 5. Redefining success before it's too late. There comes a moment, quiet, unsettling, and strangely liberating, when you realize that the version of success you've been chasing isn't just unfulfilling, it's incompatible with who you're becoming. And that moment, though terrifying, is sacred. It's the first crack in the illusion, the first breath of truth, the first sign that it's time to redefine everything. Because if success has turned into a prison, then maybe you were never meant to fit in it. Maybe it was never designed for someone like you. Someone sensitive, reflective, someone who wants to feel life, not just perform it. And once you see that clearly, you can't unsee it. The game no longer works. The rewards feel hollow, the race feels rigged, and all the noise telling you to keep going starts to sound like static. This is your wake-up call. Now comes the hard part, not quitting the world but rewriting the story, not escaping life but reimagining how you want to live it. Because success is not inherently toxic, but the way it's been defined, measured, marketed, monetized it's been twisted into a tool for control, comparison, and consumption. So if you want to be free, you have to reclaim the definition. And that means asking dangerous questions, not safe ones, not ones that lead to better productivity or optimized schedules, but questions like, what do I actually value? What do I want my days to feel like, not just look like? What does a successful life mean to me if no one else ever applauded it? Because here's the secret. True success isn't public, it's internal. It's not what the world sees, it's what you feel when you wake up. It's not about how many people admire you, it's about whether you admire the person you've become. For some people, that redefinition might look like slowing down. For others, it might mean changing careers, saying no more often, letting go of the life you built for the one you actually want. It's scary, it can feel like death, but it's really a rebirth, a shedding of skin that no longer fits. The world will resist this. It will try to pull you back in. It will call you irresponsible, unrealistic, selfish. It will tempt you with new versions of the same old lie, the startup hustle, the six-figure coaching package, the productivity cult disguised as self-improvement. But don't fall for it. You've already played that game. You already know where it leads. This time you do it differently. You start by listening to yourself, to your body, to your buried dreams. You stop asking what's marketable and start asking what's meaningful. You stop grinding and start growing. Not for applause, not for a resume, but because your soul is starving for something real. Real success feels like ease, like alignment, like coming home. It's not flashy, it's not impressive in a LinkedIn-approved way. It might look like gardening, or painting, or taking long walks without checking your phone. It might mean earning less, but feeling more. Working less, but loving more. Doing less, but being more. And here's the wild part. Once you stop chasing the lie, your life doesn't shrink, it expands. Suddenly you have time, space, clarity. You start noticing beauty again, You remember what joy feels like. You reconnect with people, not just for networking, but for the sake of connection. You learn how to rest without guilt, how to breathe without rushing, how to exist without constantly proving your right to exist. This is the revolution. Not louder, not faster, but deeper. Redefining success isn't about abandoning ambition, it's about redirecting it toward healing, toward authenticity, toward a life that feels like yours. And yes, it may mean walking away from things that once made you feel safe. The identity, the praise, the illusion of certainty. But in exchange, you get yourself back. And once you taste that, there's no going back. You realize you were never broken, just misdirected. You were never lost, just misled. You were never lazy, just exhausted from running after someone else's dream. Now you rest, now you reset, now you redefine. And that new definition, it's yours completely. Maybe it includes career goals, maybe it doesn't. Maybe it includes quiet mornings, strong coffee, books that make you feel something. Maybe it includes laughter, presence, deep relationships. Maybe it includes letting go of the ladder and finally touching the ground. Whatever it is, let it be true. Let it be enough. Because the only thing worse than failing at someone else's definition of success is succeeding at it. Here's what no one tells you. The scariest thing about waking up isn't realizing how much time you've lost. It's realizing how much time you still have. Time to change, time to choose differently, time to stop performing and start living. But that kind of freedom is terrifying because it comes with responsibility. The responsibility to define your own life, to break the script, to say this version of success, it's not for me. And people might not understand. They might say, but you were doing so well, but you had such a promising future. What they really mean is you were following the rules, you were predictable, you were easier to categorize. And maybe you were, but deep down you knew. Success without self is just survival with a better wardrobe. So here you are, standing at the edge of a new question. Not, how do I succeed? But what am I here to live for? Not, how do I look accomplished, but what makes me feel whole? That question won't be answered overnight. It might take months, years, maybe a lifetime. But at least now you're asking the right question. And that's where everything begins. You see, you were never broken. You were never lazy or weak or unmotivated. You were tired of chasing something that didn't belong to you. That's not failure. That's wisdom. That's courage. That's healing in motion. Maybe your success isn't a ladder at all. Maybe it's a garden. Something you water slowly, patiently. Something that grows quietly, out of sight. Not for show, but for sustenance. Not to impress others, but to nourish yourself. That kind of success doesn't burn you out. It feeds you. It gives more than it takes. And best of all, it's yours. So if you're ready to stop climbing and start growing, you're not alone. You're not lost. You're just beginning. If this video touched something deep inside you, don't just scroll past. Sit with it, reflect, and share your thoughts in the comments. What's one thing you'd change about how you define success today? Let's build a space for honesty, not performance. And if you're tired of chasing someone else's dream, hit that subscribe button. Here we question the narrative. Here we choose meaning over metrics. Because your worth isn't something you earn, it's something you remember.